And now centrist French candidate Emmanuel Macron has thanked supporters after his decisive victory in the presidential runoff. And Macron has said that he understands the anger, anxiety, and doubt which led to division in French society. He also said that he'll defend the unity of France and all of Europe, stressing that his country shared values with the continent. Former banker and former economy minister said that jobs and education were at stake in France and promised to build a better future together with the people. And Macron added that France will be at the forefront of the fight against terrorism. Meanwhile, his far-right rival Marine Le Pen conceded defeat as she wished Macron luck and success, considering, quote, the massive challenges that France is facing.
My dear compatriots from the metropolis and from overseas, the French have chosen a new president of the Republic and have voted for continuity. I called Mr. Macron to congratulate him for his election and because I have at heart the superior interest of the country. I wished him success in front of the massive challenges that France is facing.
Le Pen received around 35% of the votes. She thanked 11 million French people who granted her, quote, voice and trust. Projections were released right after the closure of polling stations across the country. And joining us out of Ontario for more on the story is Mr. Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst. Hello, and thank you for joining us, sir. I mean, nearly 40% of people voted for Le Pen, or I should say the extreme vote, as Macron alluded to earlier during his victory speech there. Is that something that Paris should be concerned with?
Well, I think that this is something that generally does happen when any kind of advanced country goes into crisis. There tends to be a turn towards the far right, seeking answers. We saw this with the United States as well and other European states. When a crisis appears, people do not tend to look forward to a better world, one that has new ideas, fresh perspectives that can solve new problems. Many of them, particularly the advanced Western countries, the democracies, tend towards going backwards instead. They head towards a more right-wing, a very more extremist, authoritarian type government with all sorts of justifications like fears about supposed plots by different general boogeyman figures around the world, etc. A lot of it a very xenophobic fear of particularly minorities coming into the country, which they feel is a part of that conspiratorial mindset. And it was, former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice who did warn that even if a populist along these lines doesn't win, that doesn't mean they don't have a significant impact on the society in general. And that may be enough to whip up violence or some kind of social discontent. But it is, we do at least see a 65% of the vote going to a more moderate middle of the road, which generally which seems to have broken with the general trend for at least for the United States and Europe.
And Jason, can you elaborate on the crisis here? Are you referring to the fact that the country is upside down economically?
Yes, definitely. There's been some tremendous difficulties that have faced Europe since the beginning of the Great Recession back in 2008. And much of that, despite being so long away, almost 10 years ago, it still has had a major impact, and it has not just affected people economically, but it's affected the social interactions between people as well. As the general economic situation continues to decline, there are several fluctuations, but a general decline. But as this happens, people begin to lose their connection with each other. And when hard times come, people look for explanations. And this is usually when a populist leader shows up to give people a scapegoat in order to push their particular extremist views through.
And so, okay, so then now Macron is saying that he's going to address these divisions and unite the country. So my question to you, do you have hopes that he can do so, considering that a lot of people see him as an extension of Hollande's government?
I think it's definitely possible that he could do it. I think it's a question of whether or not he's going to do something different than his predecessor did. It's still a question that's largely up in the air. I mean, we very often hear a politician say one thing, but then end up doing another. So I think it's really, he could do it. This is something that's possible that can be carried out. Whether or not he's really going to do it is quite another, because when it comes to politicians, everything's really up in the air.
Thank you for joining us, Jason. That was Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst, joining us out of Ontario.